Yeah, certainly. Well, from Rennie's point of view, he's a very methodical driver. He works and he's into detail, and that detail starts from the first second he sits in the sim in preparation for a race, all the way through the race weekend itself. He builds up stage by stage, and so to see him fastest already in FP1 suggests that he's got a real feeling for the circuit. And actually, it's a circuit characteristic he's much more used to than maybe what some of the street circuits we've had in the past. But you're right, I think for the McLaren, it has had the pace in qualifying, but historically it's been a little bit of a struggle, I think, when it came to the actual race itself. However, this one, you know, it's a new open territory, and certainly when it comes to wheel-to-wheel racing, knowing Rennie, I wouldn't put anything past him. He's definitely one that will fight it out to the checkered flag.
Many-time Porsche Super Cup champion and DTM champion, triple DTM champion. I love the fact that he's had such different styles of racing over the years. We're just looking at a few more coming through now.
This is the only single-seater that he's ever driven. So in reality, when we brought him in, it was a kind of voyage into the unknown to some extent. And it was in the middle of a season as well. But he adapted very quickly and he thought about things extremely, I would say, in a focused manner. And he was a pleasure to be in the team. And so ultimately, he deserves definitely some success in Formula E, because I think that's probably the one tick list that's missing from his CV at the moment.
Interesting to hear that, and especially when he's racing against people like Sebastian Buemi, who has massive single-seater experience. Most of his career has been in single-seaters, although he did then go into GT racing as well. But nonetheless, he has plenty of experience. But when he's not had the best of years this year, he has had a couple of pole positions, so qualifying sometimes has gone well for him. In Diriyah and in Berlin as well, he had pole positions, but he's not had a podium finish. Best is 4th place. He's had a couple of those this year. He is, of course, one of the most experienced in the game as well.
He is. I actually think he got a sort of refresher when he came into the Envision team. And he actually had quite a good start to the season, I thought, and got up to his speed pretty quickly, which is a hard thing to do, especially when your teammate, like Nick Cassidy, has been there for a few years at this point. Here we see this final corner, and this is something that we saw a little bit of yesterday, too, going into one. One trying to prepare the lap, which looked like Jake Dennis, and then the Mahindra of Lucas de Grassi on a flying lap. And this speed differential there is so high that actually it's very easy to get sucked into an incident. But those are the things they'll have to be careful of, especially in the group stages of quali.
I think that was Lotterer rather than Dennis, actually, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. Nato has just gone fastest at the moment in the Nissan. Again, a car that has qualified reasonably well, but isn't always so solid in the races. Fenestrez, his teammate, currently 3rd fastest. Jean-Eric Verne is in between. Still got plenty of time in this 2nd practice session. And do remember that in free practice, although we will monitor, of course, who's going fastest, it sometimes doesn't actually tell us a big story until we get into qualifying, until we get into the big battles and the duels, which we always look forward to, the quarterfinals, the semi-finals and the finals, which will determine pole position. Now, you're riding on board here with Mitch Evans. This is a rather lovely view, isn't it?
It's a fantastic view into that final chicane. There you saw the rear of the car squirreling around behind him. It just looks like the circuit temperature and everything else is just making them work so hard. They're going to be doing a heck of a lot on the steering wheel, just trying to maintain that momentum, especially on these flat-out push laps, while I would say making sure that they just don't go over the edge, which is a very fine margin, as you know, Ben.
Mitch Evans has gone 8th fastest on that lap as we look at Jean-Eric Verne here. And actually, he decides to go straight on at the chicane. Slows it right down, make sure he doesn't pick up any kind of penalty for doing that, but obviously finishes the lap off as well for him.
I'm interested to see how these guys go here, because when you go back to Valencia testing, they were super quick, both the DS and also the Maseratis. And this is a similar characteristic of circuit, so I'd expect them to be reasonably competitive. Just went in a bit too deep. The apex was nowhere to be seen and decided to abort it and then go round about the arrow to come back on.
Yeah, stick to the rules, and he's done that okay. But yeah, I'm surprised he didn't quite go around. Looked like he wasn't going too crazily off line there, but we shall have to wait and see how that goes. Let's listen in.
I can push next lap.
You can, yes, we'll do one less ES then. You can cool down, let Nato go.
It's going to be fun to see how the Penske team do. Penske in the past have won plenty of races here in Portland when it's been IndyCar or Champ Car, and Danny Sullivan took the first ever win for Penske back in 1988. here in Portland. Well, first Portland win for them anyway, and they've had 7 victories in total. So we will be watching that team closely.
Yeah, here you see the 2 Maseratis, they're running line astern, but this is something I think we could see teammates working together quite a lot with the drag effect being so important, and the fact that you can use that slipstream to save quite a significant amount of energy, probably about 5% in reality if you sit in that peloton style. And so teammates, especially in situations where maybe one of the team members is in a fight for the championship and the other one is maybe further back, you'll see some team play coming into it.
I totally agree with that. And I'm going to be fascinated to see that teamwork, as you say, because some
drivers are not very good at teamwork, are they, really?
Exactly. But some are and some not. And actually, I'm thinking a little bit of Jake Dennis working with Andre Lotterer here, because Andre, of course, has worked with teammates a lot over the years, often in the same car as him when he's been racing at Le Mans or wherever else. But he has that kind of mindset, whereas there are some drivers out there who've never had that kind of mindset of helping anyone else. It's all about them, you know?
Yeah, racing drivers are very selfish. I know when you were racing, Ben, that you were a very kind driver. You weren't selfish at all, but the fact of the matter is that's what they're paid to be.
That's why I didn't get anywhere, and you did, mate. Let's just see what Dan Ticktum's been up to here. So this is down into the last chicane final corner.
Yeah, he's wide.
Yeah.
He did that yesterday. He went very, very wide, lost the rear a little bit. And then there's a nice runoff area that allows them to come onto. But you see, just not able to keep it into the line and supported the mission.
It's interesting, we saw that, as you say, quite a lot yesterday. And it's as if that left front is just, it's overworked and it just runs the car out wide.
Well, it's had a bit of abuse all the way around the circuit and it doesn't want any more. And you're also trying to flick the car from leaning onto its right-hand side, then onto its left-hand side as you're turning into the final corner. And that transition is a bit of a struggle at the moment for them. This circuit doesn't have a lot of grip. It's quite a low grip surface. It's also quite hot, and so that combination is not ideal for a tyre.
Interesting on board view there with Pascal Wehrlein, the championship leader you're riding with now, a man who's won 3 races this year, including one of the ones at Jakarta last time out, and he now has that championship lead, but it's only a tight lead of 1 point at the moment over Jake Dennis. Pascal Wehrlein's in pretty confident mood at this stage. He's we've been talking to him a little bit over the weekend. We've had some interviews, and I have to say he looks in pretty good shape. He's confident. He wants to keep going, keep up that attack mode that they've been doing so effectively. And you're just looking at the energy being used in his car on the graphic on the left-hand side. Full throttle for a long way. What we will see is an early lift in the race in areas like this, isn't it?
Yes, because of the fact that this is quite a high energy circuit in terms of the energy from the battery consumption, then they will be doing a lot of lifting coast, and so therefore they'll be lifting pretty early on the straights to try to just recuperate energy back into the battery. And the fact is that what area into that chicane is one.
Okay, track temp is coming up. It's 1 to 2 degrees hotter than FP1.
Already there, that's something, information gives the driver a bit of a feeling for how the tyres are reacting as well, and also a reference, because FP1 that they talked about, that was yesterday, and this is a new day, new circumstance. They may have done some tweaks to the car, and so therefore they're trying to follow the changes they've made to the car setup as well as the changes to the track and work out exactly what has done whatever it is that they're feeling into it today.
Interesting how they're using the curb, some drivers more than others. You don't want to hop too hard over it, do you?
No, it's a common front suspension on the car, but not the rear suspension. So some are just naturally more adept to riding the curbs than others, but the thing about it is those are big, brutal curbs. And so if you attack it with a bit of brake pressure on, puts a lot of load into that front suspension. So in general, you can get onto the red and white sections, but the step white that's behind it, that tends to cause suspension failures at some point.
Right, okay, so they've got to be a little wary. Mind you, I tell you, the 2 McLarens are looking very strong at the moment. Rast, who was quickest in FP1, is currently fastest in FP2. He's now done a 1 minute 9.255. Not quite as rapid as he was yesterday, but we've heard the temperatures are going up as well. And the Nissans are in pretty good form as well, aren't they?
Yeah, and they use the same powertrain, so therefore, from that point of view, it looks like, is what you're saying about the Nissans with a slow start. They actually seem to have found something around about Monaco time where it locks together, and their performances definitely took a step forward. And it looks like, in general, there's a sort of Nissan train at the front, because 4 out of the top 5 cars have got that powertrain.
That's a very good point. Only Buemi is in amongst them with Jaguar power in the Envision. Nick Cassidy, his teammate, currently 6th. And then it's Jake Dennis in 7th place. You're looking at Andre Lotterer now, who is teammate to Jake Dennis. Listen in.
Just count the tires into turn 12. Launch your lap for 350 push. 350 push.
350 push, so that means he's now at maximum energy.
Power.
Yeah, maximum power.
So therefore he's got 350 kilowatts of power that he's going to deliver on the, I think it was the next lap they were preparing for, as now they're coming through, and there Andre pulls to the left and allows Dennis around the outside, his teammate. And so he's just been advised to try to keep the tyre in the right condition for that 350 push lap, which will put a heck of a lot of tyre temperature into it.
So let's see how the rest of this lap does go. And at the moment, as we can see, we're going on board.
Sorry, I was the other way around. It was Dennis that moved to the side for Andre. This is the actual lap itself, final chicane.
Don't run wide like we've seen.
He's a bit too wide. Catches it back up there, Ben. He just went a bit too wide in the middle, fighting the rear of the car. As now he comes to cross the line. Where's this got to drop him into? 19th up to 4th. Probably about maybe 0.3 of a second left on the table there in that final chicane. Got a good speed through it, just couldn't get it held into the apex on the right as well as he needed to.
And we know that he was using the most power that he gets the chance to do as well. Grassi's gone better as well. That's nice to see. He's up into 5th position, so that's a big improvement on some of the work that we've seen. Sam Bird's right down at the bottom of the list at the moment. Whether there's any kind of problem with the car, I'm not sure, but Sam not having done anything particularly yet, I think.
He's only just gone out the pits. He's done 6 laps in total, and he's just popped out of the pits now as there's a bit of dust there coming out of turn 3, just for everybody else to have a little bit of a spray out. It's not rallying, chaps. This is Formula E.
That's something to learn, though. If you put the wheel on the dust but don't actually lose any time, you can make life a bit difficult for those behind you.
You can see there the Avalanche Andretti car as he brakes, how much the front of the car dives and moves. And that giving, obviously, Dennis a little bit of feel for what's happening with it. It's pitching around quite a lot. Normally, that's pretty good in low-speed stuff. Let's see how good it is at the high-speed chicane into the final corner.
Yeah, he's got a clear run, so let's just watch this. Into the left-right. He has got a car up ahead of him at just a difficult moment. Always makes it tricky catching somebody there.
Yeah, it is Lucas de Grassi, who we saw just pop himself up into 5th. Kind of in the way, even if it wasn't necessarily slowing him down, it's in the visual eye line of it, Ben. And I think there's a couple of tenths there as well for Jake Dennis, but he's now in 5th place. Still a massive 0.8 of a second, though, away from Rennie Rast.
Yes, that's a bit of a gap. Nice to see Michael Andretti here this weekend, of course, as part of the team, and hoping that they're going to get some good results. But right now, as we mentioned, it is the McLaren team, which of course might be a British team that was introduced some 60 years ago to this year by Bruce McLaren, but has always had very strong connections with the United States. Let's just take a look. This was Nick Cassidy, certainly using a bit of extra on the inside of these curbs. This is interesting style. It's actually maybe a good thing to do to gain a little bit of speed.
Yeah, it is a good thing to do. The only thing you've got to be a little bit careful of, because he hasn't got all 4 wheels off the circuit, is you catch the inner edge of the tyre against the curb as you're coming back across it, and you can get some punctures there if you're not, I'd say if you're unlucky, just as you're dragging the tyre back across the curb.
Back with Lucas de Grassi at the moment, who's putting in a pretty competitive performance. He's currently 6th fastest. He's done a decent middle sector. Let's just see whether this improves his time at all. Over the line, yes, he goes 4th fastest now. Only nearly 4 tenths off the pace from Rennie Rast.
Quickest last sector as well from Lucas de Grassi. And he was 10th quickest yesterday. It looks like the Mahindra generally has had a difficult year. Fred Bertrand there stepped in as the team principal at the beginning of this season, and it's certainly been a baptism of fire for him, because he obviously took over the development of the car prior to the first race, and ultimately they've had a very difficult beginning, but looks like round this circuit it seems to have a little bit more, certainly in qualifying speed.
So here we are with Sam Bird. He is on track. He's not doing a particularly quick lap at this point. He did a 1:11.240 last time around. It might be that he's had to back off and now perhaps go on to a quick lap. So let's just see. But he is down in 22nd position at this point. And there is Sam Bird just going over the line. He's got a bit of clear space. So let's see how this lap goes now. James Barkley, the team principal for Jaguar TCS.
Multitasking there with an earpod in one side and then his team radio in the other.
I wonder if Sam Bird is going to be able to help Mitch Evans a little bit this weekend as opposed to knock him out. He's done it twice so far this year, knocked him out of 2 races.
I've got to say, I felt so sorry for the team and also for Sam, especially knowing him. You know, there's none of this intentional. And the thing is, you're racing so close together, but ultimately he tagged the back of his teammate, which caused a second incident in the year. But knowing him, he's very good at blocking it out, coming back and delivering a performance. That's what we've seen from Sam Bird before. Very sure we'll see it from him again. But right now, he's down at the bottom of the timesheets because he's been in the pits for most of this session.
Yeah, reasonable first sectors, middle sector's not fantastic. Let's just watch him through this final section. Everybody goes for that very wide approach into the last corner.
He's not on full power at the moment though,
okay.
So this is basically more of a race run for Sam as he crosses the line, puts himself in 19th. Yeah, well, it's certainly not race pace lifting off, but it's not a 350 kilowatt lap.
No, but as you say, we don't always know when they're going to put in a full attempt for one flying lap. Sometimes they're just working on the race pace at this stage. So Antonio Felix da Costa in the other Porsche. So the 2 Porsches at the moment are quite a long way down in 17th and 18th places.
Yeah, they tended probably not to qualify as well at the beginning of the year, and then their efficiency and I would say their general setup and race structure was very good, brought them through to the front. So even although, you know, they maybe didn't qualify so well, I don't think they were too disturbed about it. And ultimately, this race itself, though, I think could be anybody's once a race, you know, once you actually get into it.
Yeah.
But for da Costa, he had a fantastic race in South Africa.
Yes.
You know, it's beautiful the way that he came through, got to grips with the car, got to grips with everything, and just basically bullied his way to the front.
That may be an example, actually, because he's been the best winner from furthest down on the grid so far this year. That victory he took from 11th on the grid. And we've had 3 wins. We've just seen Max Günther go quickest. Yeah, good point. We've had 3 wins from 9th on the grid this year, which seems amazing to me in a way. So that's the drivers who didn't quite get into the duels 3 times, they've all gone on to win a race. And I think this weekend we could easily see something like that again, couldn't we?
So, Ben, in your racing career, how many times when you qualified 9th did you go, yes, that's it? You were always disappointed if you weren't in the front row or in pole position. But ultimately, with the way the racing style is in this particular season, then actually it has allowed people to come back from a bad qualifying, or maybe a suboptimal qualifying, something that we haven't seen in the past in Formula E. It used to be very difficult to achieve that. This year, it looks as if it's a little bit better, and ultimately probably harder to win if you're on the front.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. We'll have to wait and see how this works out. But I think, although qualifying is going to be fun, and you always get the extra 3 points for pole position, which can make a difference ultimately in the championship battles. But I think we could see a complete reverse from however the grid lines up to how the race actually finishes later on today. So you're watching Stoffel van Dorn right now. He's down in 10th place, the reigning champion, car number 1. Bit of a slide. Yeah,
a slide there as he came out the last corner. His teammate's just gone 3rd, John-Eric Verne. And Stoffel van Dorn was on for a similar one, but dropped a few tenths definitely in that last corner trying to get the power down. And so he's slotted into 7th place.
Let's have a look at Luke Grassi. Yeah, he had a lock-up down into the chicane. Decided to just bail out, fair enough. No damage done to the car. This is what it was like from on board.
Yeah, you could hear it just sort of as he hit the brakes hard, locked up, and then came to a stop and accelerate forward again.
So we've only got 8 3/4 minutes still to go in this session. As Norman Nato in the number 17 car. He's down in 12th position in the Nissan currently. Fenestre is down in 16th position.
There as he comes on to the back straight. It's good to see Nato, but a shout out for who's in 13th, Nico Müller in the Abt Cupra, a car that definitely is not a fancied runner. They did have a stunning run in qualifying when it was wet in Berlin, but ultimately been a tricky run because they run the Mahindra powertrain as well. But Nico Müller certainly got himself up to speed, and he's 13th quickest at the moment. 1 place ahead of Mitch Evans, who's fighting for the title, and also 2 places ahead of Sam Bird.
and just ahead of Roberto Merri, who's actually in the pits at the moment. And remember, Merri only made his debut in Formula E last time out in Jakarta, in the 2 races in Jakarta. Here he's got an opportunity to be on a track that probably, I don't think he's raced here before, but will feel more familiar to him in a way than the sort of street circuits that Formula E is more used to. So we'll see how he gets on. We've seen that his teammate has done a good job. Grassi up into 6th place, Merri currently down in 16th position.
Yes, Merri himself has only had 1 run on full power, whereas Lucas de Grassi's had 2, and so therefore he's got another run in his pocket ready to go. As we see Tommaso Volpe, he's the head of Nissan Motorsport and also of this particular Formula E team.
Now, what's Robin Frijns been up to? Let's have a look. A little bit of a little error onto the grass.
Lost the rear coming in, and then that's the tightening turn 4 and then into 5. And so if you get your wheels on the grass there, Ben, on the left-hand side, then the circuit keeps going right and your grip level's telling you you ain't following it.
They've had a tough one scoring points this year, but actually Robin had a good result for him in the first race in Jakarta. He had his best finish of the year, 9th place, but he has been very much struggling to score points so far. In the past, he's taken victories, but his last was actually in the USA. New York 2019 was the last time he won a race in Formula E, and his last podium was in New York 2022. So I'm sure he's going to be happy to be back here in the States. He had a bit of a tough start to the season with a damaged wrist as a result of an accident, but he is certainly on the case now, just pushing on a little bit. He's down in 22nd position for now.
Yeah, he is, and you could hear the tyres scrubbing across the circuit as well. It's not as if the car's gripping into the track and going round the corner, it's sort of sliding over the top of the surface, which is not a good feeling. You just hear it there chirping away as he's coming through the final corner. Thomas Biermeier, team principal in the head of Abt Motorsport, sitting watching.
Brake warm up and step steer.
Well, that's good. That's still a good jump up for Frijns. Look, he's gone up to 6th place in the Abt Cupra, so that actually, it might not have been perfect, but it's actually worked out pretty well for the team.
I would say 3/10 off the pace of Max Günther. It is pretty perfect, actually, for him in that respect. If they can just maybe tighten up a little bit, then it'll be really good for them.
Let's have a look. Jake Dennis is going on to 2 push laps. So this is interesting because remember, he is a major championship contender. Only 1 point behind Pascal Wehrlein in that championship battle, with only 4 more races after this weekend. This weekend could be crucial. He's done well in terms of scoring lots of podiums, but he went through a patch mid-season where he wasn't scoring at all, had several offs, errors or some mechanical issues, and it's really important that Jake gets this together. Let's watch this lap, see how it comes together here, Arne.
Yeah, look at, you can see the front of the car diving again as he's, looks like he's lifted a little bit there. No, he's back onto the power again. Coming into the long, he's very wide into that final corner onto the back straight, trying to maximise the momentum and the speed through it. As now he's got the final chicane in the last corner to go, 230, it'll be about 250 kilometres per hour as he just rocks it, in fact 260 as he rocks it into the chicane.
Yeah, we're seeing some much higher speeds here in Formula E than we do elsewhere. That was actually nicely done. He was right on the limit, could easily have run wide.
Yeah, it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be a sterling lap from Jake Dennis. We'll see now he crosses the line.
No,
doesn't move position.
No, you're right. Wasn't a great lap. Let's see, they said he was going to do 2 quick laps. Let's see if he's going to continue here. Just look back how he was using the curbs.
He kept on the lower part of it. This is in the chicane, so didn't get onto the big white step, but used quite a bit coming through the left-hand part, trying to get onto the power and then run it through the flat-out turn 3 and into turn 4. Here we are in the middle of the circuit with him again. This is the second of the push laps, Ben, and it's not fantastic first sector either. He's still got 1 full power lap to go, but it doesn't, I don't think this is it.
Okay.
3 minutes 40 seconds.
Interestingly, René Rast, who's currently 2nd at the moment, when he was last out, did do a very good middle sector. Still that 0.015 off what Max Günther has done. Just bear in mind, the last time we had the cars out in Jakarta, Max Günther was quickest in every session. Oh, look, he's catching a car right at the 2 cars. Oh, he's had to go off to avoid it. That hasn't worked well for Jake.
Yeah, to be honest, it is something that can happen there, but I have to say that the cars that are going slowly should have their teams telling them what is coming. because there's fine preparing a lap, but you cannot be blocking someone else. As you see again, the Neo there definitely was in the wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, unfortunately that wasn't really quite how it should have been, but nonetheless he's managed to keep okay with the car, still in one place. Onto the grass as he had to do.
I'd be a bit disgruntled with the Maserati as well, who could have definitely have seen that there was a car approaching pretty quickly. He did try and get out of the way and did a reasonable job, but the Neo definitely should have a talking to.
Yeah, that's Sette Camera who was in the Neo. It was, funny enough, it was Gunter in the Maserati who was slightly in the way.
And his teammate Mortara's going very quickly, fastest in the middle sector, so I would say Mortara's going to probably bring himself up to the front of the timesheets as well to join his teammate Gunter, who was in that little contretemps at the final corner. Sam Bird, who had a very tricky start to the session, spent most of it in the pits, and Sam's just finished another lap and puts himself up into 6th.
Yeah, that's a good effort. Mortara does improve, as you say. He goes 9th, so that is a bit of a jump.
Yeah, he was his fastest first and third sector, and fastest overall in the middle. But ultimately, that was still only 3/10 off quickest.
We've got a 17 drivers separated by under 8/10 of a second at the moment. 18 by just over a second. Similar to yesterday, we saw about another car going off to Costa. No, let's just have a look. That was, I think. We'll see in a moment just exactly what happened there. That was actually Verne, I think, wasn't it, who'd gone wide. But we shall have a look. Gunter is still fastest. Rast is 2nd. Verne is 3rd. So let's see what happens to Jean-Eric Verne here.
Final chicane. Runs in, runs wide. Onto the grass. Over the curb. And that's kind of it.
He managed to get back on the tarmac, didn't he?
Now, I think he was on the escape road tarmac. He wasn't on the circuit tarmac.
Right, okay, fair enough. Yeah, you're right. I see. Yeah, at least didn't have to turn around and go the wrong way like some of them have been doing.
Yeah, but then the tyres now, it's not that they pick up and glue the grass into them like a slick tyre would do, but they're certainly not, that's not your ideal preparation.
Next lap is 350 or 300?
300, I want to keep 300 preparing for quali.
First part of qualifying, when we see the cars in Group A and Group B, they're split into 2 groups. They are allowed to use the 300 kilowatts. Norman Nato has just gone quickest. We've got a yellow flag down at turn 11 at the moment. But Nato has set the pace at a 19.101, and that is the fastest we've seen all weekend, including FP1. It's gone quicker than that. Oh, no, sorry, it hasn't quite. It was a 19.05 yesterday from René Rast. So nearly there, but not quite. Let's just see what Nick Cassidy has done. Yeah, he's gone off wide at that same area.
I think he thought he had a whole load more grip than actually the car had at that point. It's carried a lot of speed through the left and the right, cut the curb. And yeah, actually it was the cars ahead of him that was, so I apologise to Nick on that one. The cars ahead of him were basically stopped, and so if he had turned into the final corner, he'd have hit one of them up the back.
Checker flag is out, so we'll just see if anybody else can put in an improvement lap. To see that Sette Camera has been given a black and white flag for impeding another driver. We did see that little incident up at the last corner a while ago. Sam Bird coming across the line, and he does further improve. So it was a quiet start for Sam, but he's gone 3rd quickest now. That's very, very impressive for Jaguar TCS. His teammate is somewhat further down. Mitch Evans down in 21st, but it looks like they may be playing with slightly different experiments here, and that has worked well for Sam Bird. At the moment, it's still Norman Nato who is quickest. We'll see if anybody else is going to improve on this final lap. Jake Dennis is quite a long way down the list at the moment. Let's just see whether this lap is going to see him go any quicker. I'm not sure it's not going to make any difference at all. He stays down in 19th position. We've seen a real oscillation of positions here, and it's very hard to predict who's going to be fastest. Okay, in Jakarta, when Max Gunter was quickest in free practice sessions, he then went on to dominate in qualifying. Whether Norman Nato can do that later on today, we're going to have to find out. Max Gunter's up there as well, so is Sam Bird, and we know Sam can be very rapid on occasions. When everything comes together for him, then he can make it work extremely well. No pole positions so far this year, but 6 pole positions in his career. Listen in.
Copy. Good session.
Norman Nato.
Let's focus on quali now.
Yeah, all worked well for him. And we're going to get some practice starts now off the line.
Yeah, try to find out what settings they do need for the start. So at the end of every session, they do a practice start. This is, well, most circuits, it's a bit of a voyage of discovery because the circuit changes so much. This one being a new track as well. Some will do it on the left, some will do it on the right. Generally, you tend to alternate, and so you'll get one of your cars to do it on the left, one to do it on the right, and again, try and get an average grip level. And this is something that you tend to do. I would say that one thing that probably, because it's such a strong energy race, they will not do a practice start on their burnout at the grid itself when it comes to the race, but right now they're preparing what they need when the lights go out and the race gets on.
Yeah, and then we're going to be into that peloton race where they're all following each other and lifting off early at the end of straights, and drivers following other drivers, not knowing exactly where the driver in front's going to lift, but they have to be ready for it.
They certainly do. The other thing that's important about this is they'll have a different speed approaching the first corner. So it's a mental point of understanding your braking position into the first corner, especially if you're braking maybe in the middle or on the right-hand side, something you would never normally do in practice, in free practice 1, 2, or in qualifying.
And there's a lot of width on this straight, isn't there?
Huge.
I mean, we could end up with a whole group of cars all braking late into that first corner, but they cannot afford to make a big mistake and throw it away at that stage.
No, as we say in Scotland, it's as wide as the Clyde in there. It's just so wide, and as they're driving down into it, then it narrows very much as there's a pinch point at the apex curb on the right-hand side. And so ultimately it will be quite an exciting first corner. I'm quite happy, to be honest, Ben, that we're retired and we're sitting here watching it, as opposed to, you know, just trying to clench yourself as you're going in there, wondering how you're going to come out.
It's going to be tricky. We saw Buemi chatting to his team a moment ago, gathered that Buemi's had some brake problems. He had that a little bit yesterday as well, so unfortunately it hasn't been working quite to plan for Sebastian Buemi just yet. But let's take a look at how the results have gone here. We're just seeing cars finding slightly different ways back towards the pits. But let's take a look at the second practice session. And it is Norman Nato for Nissan who has set the pace from Max Günther, who was rapid all at the last event in Jakarta. Sam Bird jumping up to third towards the end there. René Rast, a very strong fourth throughout the whole session. Jean-Eric Verne, Sacha Fenestres, Jake Hughes, Eduardo Mortara, Pascal Wehrlein, championship leader, 9th fastest, and Antonio Felix da Costa currently 6th in the championship. He finished out the top 10, so both Tag Heuer Porsches in the top 10. Robin Freins impressive in the Abt Cupra to go 11th, ahead of Sebastian Buemi, who we hear some brake issues there. And in fact, Buemi's teammate, big challenger in the championship, Nick Cassidy, down in 20th place, with Mick Evans down in 21st place. So a lot of work to do. Let's go and join Saunders down in the pit lane.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm down here with Tommaso Volpe from Nissan. Lovely lap there from Norman Nato towards the end. How did it all come together?
Well, yes, we knew that today would have probably had a better pace because yesterday we tried something, didn't really work. But yeah, Norman put together a perfect lap, so great for him, but we are just the beginning.
What sort of feedback are you getting from the drivers about this circuit? Because, you know, qualifying is going to be one thing, the race is going to be a very different story. What have they been telling you?
Well, it's a proper track, so of course they love it in a way because it reminds them to other categories probably. But yeah, race is gonna be tough. It's gonna be complicated compared to other circuits where we go. Qualifying might be more a days for them, but race is gonna be a little bit complicated.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, it went well for that team, didn't it? But of course, it's all going to matter when we get into qualifying later on. Not too long before they actually get into that big battle. So third fastest was Sam Bird, number 10 in the Jaguar. Really good effort right towards the end of that session. Second fastest, the man who was so successful in Jakarta, took the last victory that we've seen, and the first for Maserati. He was second fastest. But Norman Nato set the pace, car number 17. And the Frenchman, who has had a best grid position of third on the grid this year in Monaco and a best finish of 5th, well, we're going to find out whether he can do even better than that. And by the way, it's lovely to see the fans enjoying the sunshine. It's also a day of celebration for Mitch Evans today. It's his birthday, 29th birthday, so happy birthday to Mitch Evans, who is competing this weekend. Unfortunately, he was down in 21st place, but hopefully things will go a little better when he gets out in qualifying. There's Max Günther who was so strong last time out in Jakarta. And the Maserati team do seem to be getting right on top of things. We'll have to see in qualifying whether they can do as well as they were doing last time. Let's take a look at some of the highlights then from this free practice session. And there was quite a lot of action, particularly down at the last couple of corners, Alan.
Yeah, certainly that was a little bit of a squeeze there that the Andretti put on Lucas de Grassi. When we see it again, a lot of bouncing over curbs. So that first corner, you need to try to get onto the curb, but not over the curb. But this was the corner where we saw so many people just running wide, trying to take too much speed through the corner, not quite making it.
Yeah, I was surprised actually. Some of the most qualified and experienced drivers were making that same mistake coming down into this last little section.
You've got to push it, and this was the time to push it before they go into the group stages of qualifying. But it was a common thread. I think we'll still see one or two people doing it in qualifying themselves. But this driver's eye view from Sam Bird, late out of the gates because he had some issues, but popped himself up into third at the end.
On board, you can see it was sometimes easy to get the braking wrong down into the chicane and easy to go in a little bit too wide. Sacha Fenestrez, though, pushing hard in the Nissan, and the Nissan car certainly working well. He was sixth fastest in the end, but his teammate Norman Nato was the fastest of all. But getting onto the grass here was a common theme. That was Jake Dennis when he had the off. There were cars up ahead of him, which kind of confused the issue as well. And that's something we're going to have to watch out in qualifying. You do not want to get into that scene in qualifying when you're on a rapid lap. So teams are going to have to communicate well with the drivers. There you are, look, Jean-Eric Vergne, one of the most experienced drivers in Formula E, but it still wasn't quite going right for him either. That is just a difficult area of the track they're going to have to sort out. So those were some of the highlights, but it's lovely to see the crowd already beginning to build up here in Portland this weekend, and lovely viewing points around as well. The motorhomes are parked up down there on the outside of the chicane, down towards turns 3 and 4 as well, and it's lovely to see families here soaking up the atmosphere of Formula E being in Portland for the first time. 30th city to ever host a round of Formula E, and it's lovely to see. And back in the United States, of course, a fourth different venue in the United States, but I think Portland itself is the sort of place for this because they have a great sense for the green future of everything. And there we've got Nick Cassidy. There he is, looking with a smile on his face, even though he ended up 20th fastest. Well, there are lots of smiling faces. I think they're enjoying being out there on this track. And we're going to see a lot more action from them coming up soon when we get ready for qualifying.